read the whole thing, or
yeah, I'm gonna take this one.
because this one has nothing on it. Huh?
It's just a little bit better for organization purposes.
And it's live.
This one is now on.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us all. I'm Ivo Dollar, the president of the Chicago Council on Global Affairs, and I'm joined here with the mayor of Cape Town, the mayor of Chicago, the mayor of Milan, and the mayor of Montreal. Slightly different than we had originally advertised, but with weather as it is, we will improvise on the spot. And the good news is we had a very good discussion this morning. I think we'll have a rich discussion going forward this afternoon. As you know, at the invitation of Mayor Hidalgo and Mayor Emmanuel, mayors from around the world, literally from 5 continents, came together here last night to have a discussion about urban waterways and what they can do for our cities. And we had a good discussion last night. We had a even more in detail discussion this morning where we exchanged information and views on how we can use our rivers, our canals, our lakes, our seas and oceans. In the case of Cape Town, 2 oceans since they come together there, and how to use the waterfronts for different purposes in order to enhance sustainability, in order to promote economic development, in order to enhance health and recreational use and social inclusion, and finding ways in which the development of our riverfronts, of our lakefronts, of our ports and harbors can stimulate that kind of change. That is what we were talking about this morning, and which we will continue to talk about here in our public forum today. I'm very pleased that the Council has been able to work together with the City of Chicago, the City of Paris, and World Business Chicago to host this event. Let me start off and maybe just go down the line with starting off with you, Mayor DeLille. Talk about your major waterfront project, and we'll go through all of them. about what it is that you are trying to accomplish and the goals you're seeking to accomplish with them. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you and good afternoon. The City of Cape Town waterfront really started with a vision 25 years ago where we had an old rundown dock area not being used, unsafe, people hardly connecting. And the vision was to reconnect the city of Cape Town, the citizens, with the sea. Because we're living in a sea and a city with the two oceans, but the communities were not really connected. They didn't respond, they didn't go to the waterfront. And then we started developing the waterfront, of course with lots of public consultation, because you always have to keep the citizens informed and let them move with you so they understand the benefit of it. Then secondly, of course, we always look at ways of bringing in new development into our city, creating jobs. Unemployment is quite high in South Africa. So we then had to find a balance between development in the city and also at the same time protecting our environment. And so that, you continue to create jobs, but balance and protecting your environment. So we continued along that way, and today, fast forward, we are very successful. During peak season, at least 100,000 people per day will visit the waterfront, of which 23% of them are international tourists, 64% local, and then we also have a number of people visiting from the rest of the continent. And that has created more than 50,000 direct and indirect jobs. It's created a lot of investment in that area. And now it's vibrant. Retail space, prime property space. And it's also a place where families from the city of Cape Town connect. People go there, they meet, they go to the restaurants. So the value of having a functioning waterfront is great value, adds great value to your city. Lastly, we have just freed up about 6 hectares of land next to the waterfront because we want to bring more people into our city. More people must live closer to work opportunities. We want to stop the urban sprawl of people living far away from our cities and start building density. So the investment is that I said to the developers, I will free up the 6 hectares of land to you, but with 2 conditions. The one is that you must build affordable housing in the city center. Secondly, you must help us to deal with the congestion in the city so that we can reduce our carbon emissions. And so with a partnership with the private sector and partnership with our communities, we're able to achieve a great success story. But now we are building, and I was telling Mayor Emmanuel earlier on, as much as I'm coming to learn from Chicago, we're also competing with Chicago because we want to become the best waterfront in the world.
Never going to happen.
For strange reasons, there was no competition this morning about
I told her
who
not
was
to,
number one.
I told her
number
not
two.
to take on a middle child, but there she goes. She won't listen to me.
Only hugs.
Yeah, she has 2 oceans. We have a lake and a river. So we kind of approached our strategy as in the city. Everybody knows during spring, summer, and fall, our lakefront is where people go bike and run. And it's got, the good news is everybody, a lot of people do it. About 40 to 50,000 people a day. Some people think as high as 100,000 do it. So it's gotten so congested, and with the generous philanthropy of Ken Griffin, we're going to build separate bike and running paths so people can enjoy the, whether it's walking, whether it's running, whether it's biking, that exercise and that enjoyment of the lakefront in that area. And this Memorial Day, we've added 4 acres of open part to the lake, but now there's what is being built is a theater on the lake, which we will rent out to neighborhood theaters so they can perform on the lakefront. Their theater, they don't have to have their own space. It has a year-round restaurant, and it's becoming a year-round facility with the lakefront as the backdrop, both for a restaurant as well as a theater operation, and that's adding tremendous value. The second project, which has been taking a lot of the city's energy, which is a reintroduction of our river. Chicago's river has always been an industrial highway. With the closure of the 2 coal plants, we opened it up for recreation from industrial. So the river walk, and this is where we sometimes we talk about the national government not being a partner, but we put no money into the river walk locally. It was a grant, it was a loan from the federal government, TIFIA loan, which we're paying back with, when you take an architectural boat tour in the city, you're helping pay that back. It's running a 40% ahead of schedule, as is the retail. That has created billions of dollars of private development on the riverfront that we never had before. New Apple Store, one of the largest Chinese real estate development right across there is happening. The building we're in today is a new office building. Adjacent to it on the south, new office building, a new apartment building. There's a area there just on the riverfront in the central area. But I wanted to make sure, given the north and south branch, the neighborhoods participated. So we are now building parkland along the river, bridges, pedestrian running bridges along the river in the neighborhoods, 4 boathouses where we're already up and running, canoeing, kayaking, sculling. And so basically it's a quality of life improvement, let alone an economic improvement, that allows people, as what I said in 2011 when I first ran, I want the river to become the next recreational park of the city of Chicago. And both through the Riverwalk and the boathouses, that mission is well on its way to being accomplished. What we will be announcing soon is the Riverwalk comes to the bend of Chicago, where we then bend north and south branch. We're with both a number of grants by 2 architectural foundations. Chicago now will be asking 7 different architects to envision how to extend the river walk past the efforts for the city of Chicago, so that we can take the river walk all the way, let's say, to Chinatown. How do we take the central business area down to a different part of the neighborhoods? And so both with Richard Driehaus and Comcast, their foundation, we're sponsoring 7 different architectural firms to reimagine now what would a river walk, not just in the central area, but going further in an architecturally appealing, architecturally distinct way, and running a competition to start to think through different ways to extend and bolden the city so it becomes a part of the city that goes from not just the central area, but on the south branch into our neighborhoods. And that's the effort.
Great. I mean, it's one way to get that inclusion from neighborhoods that may not have the same economic development that the center
I think
has.
we're all talking, I don't want to take one, I'll take one last second. The goal in the end of the day is to create a public space in the truest sense of public, where people of different walks of life, different backgrounds, different ethnicities, different income levels, all have a shared experience. And if you, rather than being balkanized and somewhat ghettoized into our own, not neighborhoods, but so much our own, where we look alike and have our own income levels of the same level, educational level, where you have a platform where everybody of different walks of life have a shared experience. And that is how you bring a city together.
Major Sala, you have a city of what, 2,600 years going back. We've talked about oceans, rivers, and lakes. You deal with canals.
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. Let me make a premise that is, when I started working in the 80s, Milan was an industrial city. Now it is a city under a deep transformation where fashion, design, food, art, universities are the quality of the city. And we see even an opportunity for tourism. I was telling to my colleagues that now putting together visitor for tourism and leisure and business, Milan overcame Rome. That is crazy, apparently. So we have an opportunity. Now, Milan was built 26th century ago on a plateau in the middle of 2 rivers. And our ancient started digging canals, and in the 14th century, the great Leonardo da Vinci engineered and built this system of canal called Navigli to make a service for transportation of food, of materials and people. And that system worked for many centuries. 1 century ago, the municipality, as a tribute to the cars and to the traffic, decided to cover the canals. But now the times are changing, and we see that there is an attitude, mainly on the young generation, for which the people, the younger in Milan, are not paying attention to the ownership of a car. But 20% of the young, 20% of the people use the car sharing service or the bike sharing service. So starting from that and imagine the city of the future where the urban development, the mobility and the environment could give us a new city, we are planning to reopen the canals. So it's quite complicated because we live in a city with a middle-aged printing, with narrow streets. It is not a huge street. And we want to tell the people in Milan, we want to ask all the people in Milan to a referendum for the end of the year, asking them if they are in favor or against, but giving them any details to get a decision that are the complexity of the works, how many years they could suffer in the center of the city for the works, the cost of the project, and the final view. But we believe that in this period, the way of life is changing, and the people in a city like Milan, and also the people who come to Milan, could imagine to live in a different city where mobility could play a different role. We cannot forbid traffic. We can give opportunities like continue implementing new subways, and now we have 5 subways. To give a little example, from the city airport of Milan, the name is Linate, to the Dome, in 4 years there will be a new subway, and from the airport to the Dome you will need 15 minutes. To be honest, 14 minutes. It's incredible. I don't know other cities in Europe where from the city airport to the center of the city, 14 minutes. So with, taking a risk but involving the population, we want to work on this project that is to reopen the ancient Navigli in Milan.
So when you figure out how to do that, can you talk to the guy sitting to your right?
And you all are invited to, you all are invited to come to Milan to appreciate the city and the project.
And then we'll go to Rome.
Yeah.
You stay in Milan, Rome in the next life.
So after Leonardo da Vinci, now we understand the secret of the Mona Lisa, why she's smiling. It's all about the improvement of Milan. Listen, I'm from Montreal, so the first major project is tomorrow night because we have to beat the Blackhawks. They're playing at Montreal. Sorry about that. Don't take it personal. Oh, she's applauding. Thank you. You can stay.
Danny,
St. Louis fan.
that's one person.
That's one is important. Those who didn't figure out how many people is important lost their election, so we got to be careful of that. It's my show, Johan. That's it. AIFA. It's not AIFA. It's Montreal. There you go. I like him too.
Yeah.
Listen, I think that what we are witnessing today is a new level of political issue here. We're talking about urban diplomacy. We're talking about the real power, that institution who had the credibility to link with people. It's not against national politics. It's about taking care of our own. And by the next 20 years, 75% of the overall population will live in cities. So all the issue of density, all the issue of water, the future of urban planning are key for everything. We are focusing, we're all working on urban planning, transport, housing, and all that, and everybody is doing a tremendous job, and we're all living and learning from each other. What we've been doing in Montreal, the waste management is an important one. The protection of our water is an important one. We spoke today about the Great Lakes and the St. Lawrence River, where you have 20% of the fresh water in the world, just at that place. So to have all those way to protect our water is key for the future, because now when people are coming, they're coming downtown. We need to make sure that we can manage the density, that we have all the services, but it's all a matter of one thing, quality of life, right? So in Montreal, we're investing big time in infrastructure of water, all those pipes and all. It's not jazzy to cut the ribbon, but hey, we have to do it. And secondly, disinfection. The purification and quality of water is key. So we put forward in our water plan, we invested $375 million to a new process of disinfection, which is ozonation. So through ozone, we will be able to clean 40 cubic meter a second, which means per day, if you heard about our Olympic stadium, it will fill the capacity of 2 of those Olympic stadiums. At the same time, we need to change cultural behavior, the way that we drink our water, the way that we're protecting our water. So by having better infrastructure, by having better way to clean our water and change the cultural behavior, we will be able to protect that true treasure, that blue treasure, which is water. Now, of course, we are lucky in Canada to have one of the biggest places with fresh water. But when we think about our friends in Europe, what they're living in Asia, what they're living in Africa, desertification, climate change, everything is linked. So you cannot have now any strategy based on economic development without thinking about social cohesion and sustainable development. So sometimes the basic is important to do it. The fact that we have, and I've concluded with that, a new counterbalance with all the mayors working together, other level has to listen to us. Or if they don't, they will have some, consequences, because people believe in mayors. The former Secretary General of the United Nations was saying all the time, he said, if you want to make things happen, ask a mayor. Why? Because we are down to earth. Because, you can't close the White House or Ottawa, it will take 3 weeks to notice. If you close, try to close City Hall in 3 seconds. We'll talk about the potholes and everything. So anyway, and the greatest things about the leadership of RAM and all the others today is that we show to the rest of the people that it's the think global, act local issue. We are all living the same problem. We're all living through the same values and principle. It's not just a matter of money, it's a matter how can we be all part of solution. And the divided to conquer is over. So when we're having everybody from every continent talking in the same way, it has an impact because people believe in that kind of politics. So happy to be here. Thank you very much.
One of the striking things, and if you go through these 4 examples, is they're unique projects, but they're dealing in one way or another with very similar issues. And one of the nice things of having the group of mayors together, we have a whole bunch of mayors who deal with the issue of port revitalization, as you, Mayor DeLille, have as well, but in Gothenburg, in Haifa, in Buffalo, in Baltimore, facing the need to change the ports because the economic situation is changing, either because no one wants to go and use these ports anymore, or they have become dilapidated. Figuring out how to revitalize is something we can all learn from each other. And the same on the water supply. It's true that in Montreal the challenge may be a little different from Lahore, but having clean, good water is something that all of our people need and want. And whether you're dealing with a 100-year infrastructure, as here in Chicago, or a new infrastructure that's being built in newer cities in China, you see the commonality, which is why it's so important for mayors to come together, and a forum like this comes together. Just an open question to anyone who wants to take this on. As you look at what you have embarked upon in these projects, what are some of the unanticipated challenges that all of a sudden you say we're going to go ahead and do this, and then you hit a roadblock? What are some of the problems that you're facing, and if you don't have the solution yet, maybe we can have other mayors provide the solution for you here. It's one of the reasons we're here.
Well, I think that first thing first, you know, and I don't remember who said that. I think it's Mike Rawlings who said that. You know,
Mayor Dallas.
Mayor of Dallas, mayor pass. So sometime you can have great ideas, but it takes 10, 20, 30 years to apply. So you have two things that you have stuck with. First of all, when I came in, we invest since 2006 $1.7 billion on our water pipes, the basic, but it was not sufficient. So for many, many years, there was a laissez-aller, like, you know, they were not truly, they don't think it was important to invest because the lifelong of a pipe is something like 58 years old. So at one point, and it's costly more and more, so you have to invest, but you have to make sure that you put at level your own infrastructure. So that's problem number one. Problem number two, I don't know if everybody believes in it, climate change exists. Climate change is an issue. From migrants, through quality of life, look what happened with Katrina in New Orleans. You have many, many issues like that where you have to adapt yourself, you have to improvise, and you have to, you know, the storm are bigger. Everybody can be touched by it. Can be the temperature, it can be many, many things. So that's why we need to think ahead and plan for the next 20 years. So everything regarding the green gas, I might dull, I mean, it's okay. So the green gas impact is an issue, and everything is related to it. So the age of the infrastructure plus the issue of climate change can be a roadblock. And of course, if other level of government don't believe in it, you have a problem.
In
Yeah.
in Milan, I see that the attitude of the people, the sensitivity of the people towards this problem, we have it. It's clear. Even if we are suffering, we are already suffering for some problem. When you say climate change, imagine Africa. In some decades, there will be some 1 or 2 million people more. And already now, in Italy and Milan, we host many, many refugees. They escape from war or poverty. So there is not a problem. And the people and the generosity of the people in Milan, we know it, and they pay attention. So for that, for my project, real problem is finance, how to finance the project. First point, public-private partnership is the normal rule. It's not a special rule. We have to work on that. Before being elected as mayor of Milan, I was the commissioner, the CEO of the Expo. You Americans call it World Fair. In 2015, we had a tremendous, successful Expo in Milan, 21 million visitors, and we built it only through a partnership between private and public. But when you go to private, you have to show them that they can have an opportunity working with you, and they have to trust you. Otherwise, they don't put money, they don't put their credibility. So that is the point. And today, this morning, we share this vision. As in a situation where the funds from the government in America and in Europe are under reduction every single year, how we can react and we can find resources to finance the future of our cities.
I know.
Look, what did you say?
A lottery,
A
a true lottery.
Look, one of the things I think when I first laid out the idea of the river as a recreational park, I mean, for 150 years, Chicago had been separate, if not longer, from the river. So the idea of the river walk and the boathouses was new. Now that we have that, we then started a project with multiple entities, public, private, academia, foundations, on building a plan and a consensus for the next 30 years. So it's not project by project, but we have a vision so it fits in, everybody can see what each investment fits in. The second thing I would say deals with I would say, financing, and that is the challenge ahead for us as a city. So the Riverwalk was done with a government loan program called TIFIA. Those days are over in the sense of, I think we can say that right now. And we now need to come up with different methods of how to finance those 30 years going forward. And that's going to fall more upon us locally to do. And that's going to be, I think, the biggest challenge. We've proven the model through the boathouses and the Riverwalk. Now we have a model, we know it works, we know there's a great social cohesion, a great economic development that comes from it, job creation, opportunity. The question now is to how to find the financing going forward, because you can't TIFIA loan your way to every project over the next 30 years.
So actually, one of the interesting,
I forgot one last thing, and I want to say this. 3 years ago, 4 years ago, I went to Israel, and we developed a partnership between Ben Gurion University and University of Chicago on water research. They took a city with a lot of water, a country with very little water, but was very innovative, and bring together the academics together on sharing between the two different universities how to come up with the newest technology, brown water conversion, conservation at the home and residential level, because in the next 20 to 30 years, not that energy is solved, but the last 30 years, you will not have, for the next 30 years, the same challenges you have on energy. That is not true about water. And I will say one anecdote. When I was chief of staff, there was a professor out of Harvard who showed me a map where there was everywhere there was either civil wars or wars going on. Then they showed me a map of where there was drought. And you thought, when you looked at the drought map, you were looking at the same map of the civil wars and the wars between countries.
Exactly.
And I want Chicago to be the center of the research on the newest technology in water conservation, water conversion, and water usage. And I think that's where our universities can play a big role in creating a new industry, and I'm hoping Chicago's dead center on that area.
Certainly come to the right.
And then we will compete with Cape Town.
Down
as
for-
once we have something like that.
We'll get a
I
franchise in
certainly
Montreal.
come to the right city at the right time. And I want to tell
Port
Mr.
water.
Donald Trump that climate change does exist. We've got the worst drought in 100 years in my city. As I'm speaking to you, we've got less than 120 days of water left. And so I would like to see the research that's being done between Chicago and Israel, because we don't have the luxury of going by trial and error. You have to do things right the first time. So water is going to be one of the key resources that we have to look at. How do we use it differently? There's no longer, the days are over where we have to wait for normal rains to fill up our dams. We look to find different ways of treated water, pump it into our dams, and then use that, for a water resource into the future. But the same with desalination and all of those issues we are looking at the moment. And also, how do we speed up our infrastructure program to bring it forward and invest more in our water infrastructure? So I'm very pleased that I'm here today. I know I'm going to get the research. Then I don't need to go to my universities to get them to do the work or get some consultant to do the work. So thank you, Mayor. I will certainly get it from you.
I think at this point, I'd like to open it up for. Well, if you hang on, and I'm more than happy to give you the floor first, but I'd like to give you a microphone so that everybody can hear you. Yeah, but it's never a private conversation. We're taping it. So right behind you is a microphone. Here's the mayor of Haifa, who.
I'm very curious to know why desalination is not something which is common all over. It started in my country right at the beginning after the establishment of the state in Eilat. Eilat is next to Africa. And usually They are suffering there from between 40 to 50 degrees heat a day. So they had to go through desalination. Now, in our country, half of the usage of water is through desalination. So if there is an experience, why not to use it in places where there is drought, there is no water, there is problems of water which is not adequate for use of human beings. I don't understand all this.
Mayor Manuel Dalil.
Yes, no, it is certainly an option, but it's very expensive. And you then have to increase your water tariffs, and then the users need to pay more for water. Already within the water scarce area where we live, because we have to push up the tariff to deter people from wasting water, we had to put in extra money to cover the poor people against those high tariffs. So it's possible, but it's very expensive.
Manuel.
Hello.
The other issue is it's very expensive.
No.
It costs a lot of energy.
There's
a lot of energy use in order to produce this water. But it is, I mean, I think to go back to where does research has to happen, these are all the kinds of areas. I mean, there is 70% of the world surface is salt water. If we could convert salt water into cheap, clean,
I would argue,
fresh water.
I know we have other questions, but I would just say two things. Israel now has a natural gas fine, which makes the price of desalination affordable. One of the reasons I'm interested in the research part is we waste a lot of water on the brown water that could be converted and used for other usage. And before you get to seawater conversion, there's a lot of water production on the fresh water that is wasted that could be done for other uses.
You are not doing it? You don't have centers in each city?
You don't have what?
Centers to
We do have centers, as you know, as I said earlier, until recently, we used to take that water and throw it into the river. Now we stopped that, and so the different process. Go ahead.
Mayor Landgraf.
Yeah, I would just make Mitch Landry from New Orleans. I would make just an observation in listening to Ram talk about wanting to become the center of research in water. Of course, New Orleans has been talking about this since Katrina, and Rotterdam's been talking about it for a long time. What I'm beginning to hear as I travel to these different meetings with mayors from around the world is how important the scarcity of water is going to be and its impact on everything that we know.
True.
You may call it the new oil, there may be something else, but at some point in time, the next major conflict, as we talked about, is going to be around water.
Yep.
And now that we know that, you have leaders like Ram and other folks starting to think, well, we really better learn more about it because we've taken it for granted. You see it, you think it's always going to be there, you think it's ubiquitous. That's not true. And what we learned in New Orleans is that you can live by the water or you can die by the water. And you need to really begin to understand it. Many, many years ago, I served in the legislature for 16 years before I became a lieutenant governor. And I remember back then just thinking about, and we never talked about this in the legislature, who owns the water rights across America? If you go back to each one of your respective states and the cities and you ask yourself who actually owns them and who has access to them and who is using them, and how then do you use it to actually create economic development and growth? It's not a question that we've spoken a lot about in our city councils and our state legislatures. That time is here now. And on top of that, you just add an exclamation point. We have a water institute in New Orleans too. I think we're going to need them all over the world. So we begin to really understand how to make sure this is a life-giving force rather than a life-taking force. And we're not having civil wars and/or wars between country about the scarcity of water.
But specifically for the Great Lakes and the St. Lawrence River, we have the compact already. So this is an issue that we'll have to make sure to be protective because we can have all the greatest center in the world, but if we don't protect our fresh water, we have an issue. Yeah, but that's why it's important to stick together.
I think she had her hand
Madame.
up.
Madame.
Did you have your hand up or no?
Yes, ma'am, the microphone's coming towards you. Great.
Thank you. I wanted to ask the mayor of Cape Town, when you say that you have 120 days of water left, one heard similar things about Sao Paulo recently, that they have 20 million people and not enough water. And I always wonder, what does that lead you to do practically? 120 days is nothing. So what is it that you do to deal with that problem in a concrete way?
Well, certainly part of our contingency plan to deal with it is that we have a number of underground rivers running. So we're going to tap into that resource that we are using currently for irrigation purposes. So we're going to have to clean it up and make it drinkable. The second one is that we're looking at our wastewater treatment plants. I must probably have to build about a 2.5 kilometer pipeline that we can clean up the wastewater from our sewerage plants and then pump that into our dams. So that because the moment the dam gets to the 10% level, that water is not usable anymore. So we're actually in a worse situation because the last 10% of water you cannot use. And then, of course, we've increased our tariffs. We've asked our citizens to help us that we use not more than 700 million liters of water per day. And so we find a lot of people for wasting water. We've gone into a name and shame campaign to expose government departments, commercial companies, private residents that are abusing water. But you really need the cooperation of all your citizens to save this resource. And it's not an easy one. I was told when I left Cape Town on Friday, it's going to rain tomorrow. So I said, why must it wait for the mayor to leave before it's going to rain? But it's very difficult and it's very worrying. We don't want to get to a situation where we want to do water shedding, where we have to put off the water at least for 5-6 hours a day just to save the resource. But we do have contingency plans in place.
This is a phenomenon that is not just in Cape Town. It's, as you mentioned, it's in Rio, it's in Mexico City, our state of California until the biggest snowpack in a decade. We've had this, and managing this is something that with climate change and with the scarcity of water, more and more cities are going to have to face. And again, these four are the way to have that discussion.
Do you have a question?
Let me, way in the back there. Thank you.
Hi. So it seems to me that one of the major problems is that an unawareness of what goes on in the water systems. Like the public just doesn't understand how water gets to their house, how it leaves, how it gets back. And it seems like, we don't know how it's treated, we don't know where it goes, where it comes from, and they don't know that there's a lack of it to be frank. So do you guys have any ideas or any plans on public education for letting people know about how water systems work and how we are in need to change how we use water?
Well, personally, I would say it's a bottom-up issue, and frankly, the civil society is pushing us to make sure that we are protective of our water. So I think, I think that people is aware of the importance of water. Now the issue, and we're living in, this is smart city, brings smart citizen, raising the awareness, and now we're not living in silos anymore. So we are witnessing what's going on in IFA and other places. We understand the importance of issues and challenges in other cities. But clearly the fact that we have meetings like today, we're sending also a strong message on public awareness. But when I've said think global, act local, the act local is also to say that we're all part of that solution, and we have to make sure that we are put up some education too. I mean, that the kids are more aware of the situation of water and environment than other generation and so on. So it's an ongoing issue, and everybody has to be part of the solution. Don't wait after the government or people to do something. It's everybody's business.
The only thing I would say is, usually the challenge on this one is, on this topic, is Cape Town, I would guarantee you now, the residents are very familiar with how water works. When you get told you got 120 days left of water, you're going to get really smart. If you don't have that crisis, it's incumbent upon us, yes, to educate people, but if they don't see an immediate crisis, that education level is a very, very steep curve. So it's carrying people through a process, and I'll just give you one anecdote or one illustration. When we were embarking upon, Chicago is one of the largest now water infrastructure projects in the United States, $4.9 billion over 10 years. Everything's 100 years or older gets replaced, water and sewer, plus the water filtration plants. And I said then, given our history, Chicago can wait to 2057 and do it by every time there's a break, we'll fill it. Or we can sell it private, and we know what happened when last time Chicago had sold something private. Or, here's what it's going to cost us, and we're going to put 18,000 people to work over 10 years building it. It passed 50 to 0, and they chose option 3. So part of being a leader is presenting to your public the choices they have to face in the reality of the time. The hard time, the hard challenge for us is getting people to face those problems before they're a crisis. And the truth of the matter is, I'll say this about me, there are good days and bad days in doing that. And we're not perfect at it, even though we'll beat Cape Town every time. But on a serious level, they have a crisis. But we don't have a crisis. On the other hand, we got to get ahead of it before it becomes a crisis. And so then that requires us as leaders to present the public in its full way. You know, as President Kennedy used to say, to govern is to choose. And people got to see the choices, so therefore they can make the right choice for the future.
And if I may, the next debate that we'll all have to face, and we're addressing that in Montreal, future of plastic. The plastic bottles. What's in our river? What's in our ocean? The pollution through plastic is a disaster on our ecosystem, and everything is related to that. So you see, it's not a one thing, it's not a menu a la carte. We have to make sure that we have an overall way of seeing things, and this is going to be, it's already a problem, a major problem in the ocean, but even locally. So the future of plastic and those contents and the bottles and all that, we'll have to take a look at it.
Anyway, I believe that we may don't have a magical word, but we have to insist every single day to educate people, starting from the schools. It is also an opportunity for us, because I have two possibilities. One, I work on this new ground. Second possibilities, I am in defense against the political opposition that in my case is working on migrants or refugees. They tell the people, they tell the journalists we cannot accept refugees and so on. So my idea is that we have to work on the sensitivity of the people and education. Let me give you some example. Waste. In Milan, 60% of the waste is recycled. So we asked some years ago to the people to separate glass, plastic, paper, and common garbage, compost, and 60% is done. To give an example, or mobility. I was saying you 20% of the people is using sharing of bicycle or cars. So we have to work every single day to deliver the idea that the sensitivity of the people can be modified starting from the cities. And this is the opportunity that the mayor had. So use also this system to show the people that we can modify the situation.
I think what this conversation has shown, and I think the whole forum has shown, is that cities aren't just places where people live. They're also actors in how to address some of the big problems and offer the real solutions to some of the big problems that are out there, which is one of the reasons why we think it's so important, why mayors think it's so important to get together, to have the opportunity. So I want to thank the 4 mayors here, the other mayors who are with us here today for a great public forum, but more importantly, for being willing to come together to address the problems that we all face together. So thank you so much. And with that, thank to all the attendees and the partners. Please.